reconvening to open session, adjourning our special meeting, and there were no reportable actions from our closed session. And Chuck, can we have a roll call?
Okay. Director Clark?
Here.
Director Marsh?
Here.
Director Seaton?
Here.
Director Dye?
Present.
And Director Sukamel, I don't see him on the thing, so.
And see him as well. I will announce that Director Dye is not feeling well tonight, is attending, but has asked me to chair in her place. And here's Eric. Okay. So our first item is general public participation. Are there any members of the public who would like to make any comments for items that are not on tonight's agenda?
Nope, there's
none. We'll move to the regular meeting agenda. The first, shoot, this is probably what Candace wanted to be here for, is to update on the architectural design proposals for the proposed community center and district office. On February 21st, GCSD issued a request for qualifications for architectural design for the GCSD community center and district office to 4 firms. 3 firms responded by the March 4th deadline. Actually, all 3 responses were fulsome, met all the requirements for the RFQ, and all 3 were qualified for the project. The ad hoc community center committee of Director Dye, General Manager Duffy, and myself reviewed the proposals. We agreed to pursue the references and further information from 2 of the firms. I talked to the principal on the 3rd firm today. 2 of the firms have had extensive experience doing public buildings for public agencies, and specifically each has several community centers to their name that we can benchmark. And our view was we haven't built a community center before. We don't know what we don't know about the questions to ask, and we wanted to leverage their experience. We're currently working our way through starting to follow up on the references, and we'll visit some of their sites. One of them is currently building the new community center in Burlingame. Another has built a recreation in Los Altos that I'll go see next week. But we'll get a chance to see Barbara and I will each look at least 2 of their properties and talk to their references. And next step will be to come back to the board in April with a recommendation on an architectural partner to begin work with. The packet included all of the details of the RFQ. So opening up for any questions. Matthew, I see your hand up.
Both of the firms.
Yes, the firm that's working in
Matthew, wait just a sec. Barbara?
I'm sorry, I didn't have my hand up. This is really quick. Both firms were involved in different steps of the Half Moon Bay Library construction. So,
yeah.
Sorry, Matthew.
No problem. The firm that's working with Burlingame, is that the new community center that's going to be on the east side of Bayshore Freeway, right on the bayfront?
No, it's in Washington Park, which is right by the train tracks.
Okay, yeah, because Burlingame's doing something on land that literally is on the bay shore, and I was just wondering because that would give them a lot of exercise in dealing with many agencies.
Yeah, no, it's on there in one of their parks.
That particular firm is also involved in renovating the Pacifica Civic Center, which includes their community center.
And both firms have done a bunch of reuse. So they've done some really big splashy projects, but they've also done smaller projects. So we feel it's going to be hard to decide between the two. I think you would agree with that, Nancy.
Yeah, they both are very qualified, and I think we could learn a lot from both of them. It may just come down to the references and maybe the strength of the teams that they've assigned. Any questions? Comments? Candace, I know that you just joined a little bit late. I thought this might be the item that you were interested in. I just want to check if you had any public comments on this.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I actually just logged in, so I missed the whole thing. Sorry.
Okay. Well, I can probably update you, but quickly, it's in, actually, I'd be happy to send you, it's public document, the agenda memorandum, which explains we have two firms that we are progressing to references with. But our timeline is that we gave them was between now and the end of August 2023 to do our design and community outreach and work on our permitting. So they know that we are not touching the building and property in that time. And they know that they're not to go visit the property without checking in first.
Okay, yeah, thank you. That sounds good.
Okay, thanks. I think you met both of them, Candace.
So my only comment would be, so how much square footage are we looking at doing an expansion of?
The current building is 2,800 square feet. We suggested that to accommodate both, we might go as high as 4,000 square feet, which is still a pretty modest project for them.
When you say to accommodate both?
Accommodate the GCSD office as well as the community center. And the community center would be 80% of it.
Okay. And so there's no plan, we don't think, because I just feel like we don't use that much space now. There's not going to be a huge growth of employees. You know, there's going to be between 2.5 employees, maybe 3 most. If there's, I know we touch on it a little bit, but the idea of having some dedicated space that could be utilized as a preschool. You know, it would be different than how it is now completely, but I'm just wondering if there's any idea of, is that we're locked in on just community center and office space?
Well, the office spaces would be probably less than 1,000 square feet. Not much bigger than what we're living in now in our leased space. The programming that we presented and discussed a year ago, when the board was discussing the fire station, had event space, craft space, meeting room, no specific uses for any of those rooms. Just a big enough room that could be used for multiple purposes, a medium-sized room and a room for arts and crafts. So that was in the programming, and that's the programming that we gave to the architecture firm.
So there is, so there is no way of keeping a preschool or a classroom or a space at all for a classroom? It's strictly going to be the community center?
That's the plan was strictly for the community center. I think when we discussed this, when we acquired the building, the preschool would require a significant dedicated space because of the classroom setups and because of the security. And so we would, I think, to incorporate a preschool, we'd have to go to a substantially larger building. So that isn't in the programming that we discussed a year ago.
I think you have to understand though what type of preschool you're talking about, because obviously there's a model, and where I think it can make sense is, I guarantee you wait and see, our conference space and that building in general is going to be vacant, you know, during the week up until maybe 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock when people start using it. No one's going to use it in the morning and afternoons during the week. So I think there's a model where potentially a tenant in a scaled back preschool could say, hey, I'm going to lease out these 2 rooms or this room and whatever else, and run my small little preschool until 4 o'clock, you know, Monday through Friday. And then after 4 o'clock, we could use it for meetings and everything else. Because otherwise, I think it could bring in extra revenue, and we're serving our community and doing good for our community, versus just saying, get out of here, preschool. We're not going to even consider any options. We're not open-minded enough to think how we could potentially have some win-win situation that utilizes the space that's going to be vacant and is not going to be used at all. And we put that to good for the community, and it could financially offset some of our other costs. And I'm just wondering if I'm having a hard time wondering why this board is so against the idea of even proposing it. I understand that it might break down at any point. You know, I'm in real estate. There's always, you know, negotiations that you think come together and they break apart at the last second, and it never happens. And maybe that's the same thing here, but I definitely see a model where we could, you know, with some slight design modifications, we could, you know, where the bathroom is, maybe things that, you know, things like that, that say, you know what, we could actually lease out a small percentage of the space to a small preschool, you know, scaled back version of what's there now. And it actually would make sense, because we're not going to be using that space Monday through Friday, you know, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m.
The benchmarking that the PAC brought in, the community center heads for Half Moon Bay and Pacifica, didn't lead us to believe it would be empty all day Monday through Friday. They have programming for toddlers in the morning. They have pickleball morning and afternoon at the Half Moon Bay Community Center. They have classes for adults and kids. So I think that assumption is not good, but I think all we can say right now is that we will have flexible spaces, and we can explore with people who would like to use them, what their needs are and how they would use them, and if they could be accommodated. Definitely things like, you know, the toddler classes and stuff are popular, but things like Bridge Club are popular for the afternoon, and there's all kinds of ways these things get used in the daytime. But we'll benchmark and see how other people do those things. Any other comments? Not, we'll move to item 2, which is Parks and Recreation report. I do not see Rick here, but I do see Michelle here. In the pack, we have two things, I think, for the Parks and Recreation report. We do have 3 things, actually. We have an update, which if Rick doesn't join, I can do on the disc golf proposal development. Michelle is here and submitted in the pack something we probably should talk about, which is the where the costs are coming out for potential music events, so that we can give her a steer on whether to continue to pursue it at this point or not. And then Barbara has submitted another update on the Junior Land Steward program, which we can do under general. What we did with Delia on this agenda is the Parks and Recreation report will be a standard agenda item and probably always have these 4 things. PAC report, Burnham Park, Community Center, and any other general items. So Rick isn't here, so I'll just do quickly on the, Pat and Rick and I have been emailing, as well as Michelle, on the disc golf. They've had a number of discussions with CUSD, who seems to be extremely amenable to allowing that use on their property on Sonora Avenue in El Granada. They provided a sample, what a sample MOU with them looks like, that they have with the tennis club that uses the high school's tennis courts. They will have some parameters, one of which will be if they ever decide to use the property, we'd have to remove whatever was put in for a disc golf course. Pat and I will meet when he's back from watching whales in Baja to talk about how to progress next step to a full proposal. They have not yet done or planned community outreach, and they are still working with Leonard Muse pro bono, who's working on designs for them. And hopefully, I think that they are hoping potentially at our next meeting, they will have a reasonably fulsome proposal to do a check step with the board.
Are they planning to do community outreach before the next meeting? Because that's a big concern to me.
That's what Pat and I have to talk about. I let him know that the board will need to hear community input to consider a proposal, and they have not done that yet. So that's why we need to have a discussion before they work on what to bring to the board. Any other questions or comments on disc golf? Matthew.
Are we and the proponents assuming that this will take a full CEQA process?
I don't know, because I haven't seen that much detail that he's gotten into. He knows that a CEQA process would be needed. It's not going to be, throw in the baskets and call it done. It's going to need permitting and CEQA and so on, and they're aware.
Yes, good. Yeah, I'm aware that there are definitely jurisdictional wetlands on that property, and so we'll have to do a entire biological study and full-on CEQA, and then draw the lines where things can't be touched.
Yeah, none of this is easy.
No.
Yeah, but we haven't made that decision yet, to answer your question. We don't know if it's an EIR. Well, we're going to have to do CEQA, obviously, but we don't know if it's an EIR or mitigated neg deck. So.
Okay, next thing from PAC is, and this is in your PAC, Michelle and Joe Justino have worked up, I think, sufficient detail on the cost estimates to do a music event or potentially a series of music events over the summer on the Burnham Strip. Michelle, do you want to speak to this?
You've got the numbers right there, so.
And what you really need at this point is a steer to say, should I keep developing this or should we hold at this point? So
I'm good anyway.
Okay. The numbers, for those who can't see them, is to put in a temporary power pole to run the generators and to acquire equipment for a stage and dance floor would be somewhere between 13 to 19,000. The band is really the easy part to put on a band. An event, once that equipment is there, is about $800. And just from history, when we were talking about this last summer, I think we were hoping it was something we could pull off for less than about 5,000. Let's open it up for comments. Michelle, and what Michelle was envisioning was not just one, but perhaps 2 or 3 at different parts of the summer, an afternoon concert on the Burnham Strip with one of our local bands.
Well, I think the real question is also, do we want to keep the stage kit out there, right?
Yeah, and one of the unknowns is on the Burnham Park design, there is a plaza where we had envisioned having such events, and would we need this equipment once the park is done? So that was probably getting into my comments. Barbara has her hand raised. Barbara.
Yeah, I just had a question. Would it be possible to get power from the Portola pump station or the preschool somehow? It seems like a lot to get power for 3 short-term events. I'm not, I know they've done a lot of work and so forth, but
They're not going to be short-term events. You're not going to have anything on the Burnham Strip for a couple of years. So.
Well, there's power across the street, and there's ways to I think
Yes, but you can't do that, Barbara. You have to put in an emergency poll. Joe Giustino is ex-CCWD, so he knows what he's doing, and he's done the process well.
You have to bring it across to a poll. I don't know if our lease to the preschool would allow us to.
Right, I understand that, but
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry, but we can't provide power for a big event like that. We've tried having auctions and all kinds of things at our school, and we just don't have enough power. We blow power anytime we have a lot of stuff at the school.
Thank you, that makes sense.
Yeah, the breakers break, sorry.
Thanks, Candace, that's helpful. Barbara, did you have another question?
Yes, Michelle, tell me what kinds of, tell me exactly what kind of event you propose to have. It sounds like fun, but I would want to make sure that this is something our community would.
It's just like the
really
Legion
support.
event. So go to the Legion any 2 to 5, any Saturday and Sunday, and you can see exactly what they're doing. They got a cheap stage. They're hooked up to some electricity. They're dancing around on, dirt and grass. It's very simple. I've asked you again and again to please go to the Legion and see what it is. I'm not reinventing anything. And in terms of the music market, I have been publishing for the last 8 years the Coast Views Music and Live Entertainment Guide, which comes out every single week on Coastside Buzz. So all of the musicians on the coast side from Sitka to Pescadero know who I am. Not difficult for me to book people. I can have people do it for free. We've said we'll pay people, but a lot of people don't want to be paid, don't need to be paid. They just want to play their music. So there's a huge music culture on the coast. There's just tons and tons of musicians. So I know music on the Strip, I think that would be very popular. And it would be something that looks visible, like we're doing something, even though I know we're doing a lot. But visibility and perception and reality are sort of related to each other, but not always the same thing. So right now, you kind of see that we're struggling to get a pump track. That'll look good once it's done, hopefully this summer. But having music on the Strip says we're doing something every month. And I could probably do it more than people will listen to music Saturdays and Sundays at the Legion. There's just they tend to play music that's for their age group, and I think I could probably broaden the age group and broaden the types of music that's being played there.
Other comments or questions?
Michelle?
Yep.
Would you be talking about the setup that you've put into the table and priced out and leaving it up?
Yeah, the stage, there should be a picture in the packet. At least that's what I sent Delia. And it's a metal stage. It's aluminum. It's not going to get taken away. It takes a little while to get set up. There are a couple of different types of aluminum stages, but the one that I chose, which is a little bit more, could actually be used in the end. I don't know if you have a picture of it there. But
the link is there, so we can follow the link.
Okay, great. So that's just a choice as to whether or not the plaza is actually going to have a stage. I mean, I'm sure a stage can cost $20,000, $30,000 with concrete and plaster and all that kind of stuff. This is a relatively inexpensive way to have music, and it is movable. It's just not movable easily.
Other comments? David or Eric?
Yeah, I think it sounds great. I think, especially with Michelle taking the lead, I think it's one of those things that, it's huge leverage where, we don't have to put in a lot of money or a lot of time, and it could, be one of the biggest community events that we give back to our community. And I don't think if the budget's reasonable, I don't see why we would oppose it.
And we could also, Breakwater become more involved. Seasider is moving in. So they're moving in across the street in the vacant lot. So, and also the other idea I had today about the cost of the stage, It's a few pennies, and if we can use it, later, then I can rationalize that. We could probably resell it too, but we could use the stage for sponsorship. It's a great location there on Burnham Strip. Everybody drives by it, and we could get somebody like Spangler or Stams or something like.
Sorry, Michelle, you cut out a bit. I think the point was you could get people to sponsor it and then defer the cost that way. Eric, did you want to comment?
I mean, I think it's a good idea. I think my only question would be does anybody have a stage we can borrow? I mean, it's not
A rent.
We could do it on the skate ramp. That's true. Now you're really
No,
DIY concert like that.
You can't because of the parking area. You're going to have people moving in and around that area. So that's what, Joe and I have been working on is logistics. And if you have them over on the right opposite where the old fire department is, it makes a lot of sense. And the pole can be dropped there as well. That means all of the people that are watching the music are completely away from the traffic, the parking. Also, my idea is to point the band towards the ocean, not the people. And that stage, the way it's set up right now, will be like a sound funnel right into El Granada, which if everybody likes the music, that's cool. But people may be playing their own music in their home, and they may not want to have that overwash. So that's why we abandoned I wanted to do music on the ramp, how I like ramps, but it turned out to be logistically unrealistic. So that's why we moved over to the dirt. And Mario Andrini said that he can come in, he can throw some water on it and grade it for, a couple grand. And then we'll have a nice spot. We can even put some sort of like grass in there just to keep the dirt down.
Michelle, my question is I know you have used as a benchmark the Legion, and what that means to me is the Legion is a destination. It sort of has a regular crowd that shuffles in, and they go there because that's where they go and hang out. And that's the only thing that makes me a bit anxious. So I kind of echo the point that maybe Matthew made, just to test the concept. I'm a little leery of putting too much down when we don't know if people will come to a field on Obispo Street in the same way that they would go to gather at the Legion. And if we could rent a stage, I'd be amenable to testing it with the $5,000 for the power pole and the cost of the band.
I'm not interested in doing any more work on this. I've already done enough, so I'm out. It's okay. I'm not going to do more and more research. So
I hear you. It's been a year of checking it out. I'm leery of plunking down money for a stage and leaving it sitting out on the Burnham Strip. If we could do something with more of a temporary accommodation to see if people come, how many come, get some feedback, I think I'd be amenable, but I'm concerned about
questioning whether people listen to music on the coast. They do. So I mean,
I know they do. I just don't know if they would come to a field on a Saturday afternoon.
The Legion they're veterans. The people there are vets. There's only a few people like me that aren't vets that happen to live in the harbor and they just cruise around. So most of the people there, it's probably between 20 to 30 people total on a Saturday or Sunday. And it's their audience. It's not an audience that.
Yeah, I think that's the question mark for me is when we looked at the movie in the park, we went back and forth on the cost to get it down to where there was a history. They had as many as 200 people come to see movies in the park. So we felt okay about spending $2,500 because it was going to be between $10 and $20 per person. With this, I just don't have a feel for what the community, the amount of community we touch for the amount of money we spend. Matthew, you have your hand up.
Michelle, I don't quite understand how you're going to utilize the space. Where would the grading that you're talking about take place?
Where would the what take place?
The grading.
Right, where the music is
moving.
going to be in front of the fire department building. I'm
So
happy to
beyond the area that's now blocked off by the logs.
blocked off by what?
Logs.
Directly across from the fireplace, there's a place where some people
Where I put the tot lot jumper. Remember I put the tot lot jumper in there for a couple of years?
Just on the other side of the logs, the ocean side of the logs.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, it sounded like you were talking about the ad hoc parking lot being graded. That will need permits. You can't move any dirt, basically.
Actually, it won't need a permit. It's a CDX because the land is extremely damaged, Matthew. There's no, it's a CDX.
Okay, I really don't think the county will go for that. I mean, whenever you want to.
You guys, I mean, I gave you the numbers, I gave you the plan. I'm not really, I'm not going to do any more work on this. The plan is the plan. If you don't like it, then, we'll toss it back to another year or another time. But I'm not going to renegotiate things. I've told you what I'm willing to do. That's what I'm willing to do. If you want to, rent a stage, get another stage, try something else out. You can find somebody else to do all of that. But I'm done at this point. I've worked on this for long enough, and you're either committed to music or you're not. I don't think you're committed to music. So I think that's the major question. Is you're questioning the market. I'm marketing. I do music. I don't think there's a question about the market. But if you don't want to invest in it, you're not committed to it, then that's okay. And you're going to keep throwing permitting stuff in there. That's just makes everything more difficult. And that's why you have staff, so that they can do those types of permitting things. I'm not staff. I'm a committee member, and I have a full-time job. So I don't have any more time to do this. And I think it's, important that if you're going to have recreation, that you find people to do it that aren't actually on the committee or on the board. It's not a business model that's sustainable.
I hear you, Michelle. I guess I'll put my card on the table. I think this would be a great thing to do in conjunction with an event like groundbreaking on the Burnham Strip. But I'm anxious about spending $20,000 to see how many people would come to the Strip without any other event happening to draw people in. But I think in conjunction, if a year from now we do a groundbreaking and have this and some other stuff going on, I think this would be a great addition. Barbara, you have your hand up. Barbara, you're still muted.
I just want to say thank you to Michelle for doing all this work. We really, really appreciate it. I have an issue. I am concerned about any kind of grading in there. There's Hooker's evening primrose in there. There's various native plants. We could get a challenge from neighbors who might not want music there. I agree that maybe this year is not the year to start this, but we'll do it in the future. And Michelle, when the time is right, your musical connections and your ability to tell us what works and what doesn't work will be invaluable if you're still willing to share with us. So I just want to thank you for all the work that you've done.
Yeah, no problem.
And Michelle, I'd like to say, please don't misunderstand me. I like this idea. And I greatly appreciate that you have put a bunch of time and effort and cajoling into this. And I thank you for that as well. But my ears go up as soon as I hear about moving earth, because that just greatly complicates things. So it's not, this is a government agency. It's just not simple for us to do anything.
Well, actually, the San Mateo County, they actually have a CDX for all of their maintenance, all of their public works maintenance, 5-year CEQA maintenance, and basically it says they don't need to get a permit. So that might be something that GCSD looks into as well.
Well, if you've ever dealt with the county or other municipalities, you understand that how they get to do things and how they let you do things are two different universes.
Oh, I get that, but I'm pushing the point. A CDX is a CDX. And if you're pushing around a few weeds on some land, I think you're going to find, Matthew, that there's a huge movement right now. And a lot of the jurisdictions are just doing that. They're saying, we're not going to, I mean, SB 9, SB 10, no CEQA, nothing. So you're talking about moving around a few weeds, you know, maybe a half an inch just to smooth it over. That's it. People, I mean, you know, humans, the other endangered species, for goodness sake, you know, we can't play a little music and have a little fun. Now, you got the cost question. Okay, fine, but don't tell me there's not music on the coast. It's one of the most musical places that there are. And Joe, he's one of the musicians, and he was willing to put on all that time for free. So, but let's just let it go. We'll do it another time.
That would be my sentiment, that we wait until we are doing something in addition to draw people to the strip. And this time next year, we may actually have permits. That's why I would go for the groundbreaking for the park. Any other comments? I will add my thank you to Michelle. I know it's frustrating, and I know you bring tremendous energy, and I wouldn't want to do anything to tamp that energy, but I also don't want you to continue chasing something if it's just going to keep finding hurdles. And once we have permits for the park, there's a lot less hurdles. Any further comment? Okay, Michelle, I think you have your steer.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Michelle. We appreciate it.
Is there any updates, speaking of the park, Matthew and Barbara, on Burnham Park or Chuck?
I can give a little update. We had a meeting of the team of K&K, BKF, our engineers, and the Resource Conservation District, our environmental arm, and me. And in the future, Matthew's going to join those meetings, and Chuck, of course, was there. And right now, we're going back and forth on the question of what level of CEQA review to do for the park. So as soon as that's determined, the RCD is going to give us a draft RFP for CEQA, and we'll get that moving. So things are moving forward.
Okay, we already had a brief on the community center. So we'll hear more about that next month. And then just on general reports, Barbara included in the pack a junior land stewards update. Barbara, I don't know if you want to say.
Can we share? Does someone have it so they could share screen and show it?
I think I can.
This is the program that GCSD has been funding partially for the Coastside Land Trust. It's for the 4th graders at El Granada Elementary. They do a lot of different activities. The most in the fall, they did a walk up to Quarry Park. They grew their own plants. They prepared an area outside the school for planting. And their most recent thing in January, when it was, not really great growing season, they did flower dissection to understand how flowers work. And so these are pictures of the kids planting the plants that they grew in the plot outside the elementary school. And then they did nature journaling. So they think about interacting with nature and their community, and so it really gets the kids out there. The reviews of it that I've had from the parents who've come along, can we scroll down? Oops. What just happened? Can we scroll down in that? There we go.
Beyond more pictures.
And you can just see the kids doing their flower dissections. The local nurseries donated flowers. And then I think there's one more page. And they made the cutest signs Oh, this is what they're going to do next is Raindrop to Sea. I don't know if you've seen that great program that looks at how the water gets from the mountains to the sea, and you can follow any watershed and come down to the ocean. So that's going to be great. So they're going to finish up in March, and they'll all get a certificate for participating in this. I think it's a great program. Let me just add another offshoot of this, which is they had a spirit day at El Granada Elementary. And so I worked with one of the PTA leaders, who's also a teacher, and we put together a what do you call it? A treasure hunt of things to find. And the whole school walked up to Quarry Park, and they had, various plants they were supposed to find. They needed to find the piece of the railroad track that's next to the trail going up to the quarry bowl. There were a couple birds for them to see, and they start out by walking by the oldest house in El Granada. So that was also, we didn't fund that, but I helped make it happen. So, we're helping the kids who go to school in this community have a sense of this community and what's important about it and the really exciting history that we have here. They did have a wrench in it, which was that Parks was had equipment that blocked them from going up to Quarry Bowl, which had been their plan, but then they just were very adaptable and they went over to the pond on the left. So the kids, that was the whole school. So wow. I think these efforts are resulting in El Granada kids who have a sense of their community, which I think, and the environmental importance, the habitats and so forth that we have here. I think it's a great program.
Great, it does sound great. They look really into it.
They were. And one more thing, which is that they have their program in Half Moon Bay uses the high school AP environmental science students as mentors, and this program uses the ag students. So they have high school students who stay with their small group, and they love these older kids. The older kids have a ball interacting with the kids and sharing their sense of what's growing and how to plant the garden, and it's a nice. That's another nice piece of it.
Great, thanks, Barbara.
David, what grade is your kid in? You have a kid in El Granada Elementary, yes?
No.
Oh.
He's in.
Oh, he's where?
When school shut down, we put him into private school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's fine. I don't know. I thought you had a child there. That's all.
Okay, that's the end of. Candace, go ahead. Candace, so you need to unmute.
Sorry, I have my own children running around crazy. I was just listening to everything you were saying in the program that you're doing. That's awesome, and that's great. It's nice to see that the children of El Granada have a sense of community. A majority of children that you just posted the pictures of went to Picasso preschool. So I think you're forgetting about the younger kids too, not to bring the preschool back into it. I know our lease is going to be up and we have this agreement and everything. But I think you also need to focus on the younger children too, and the families of our community with the younger kids, not just fourth grade, not just elementary school, because we set the foundation for those kids. I think you're forgetting some members of the GCSD don't realize the importance of early childhood education.
I hear you, Candace.
And I invite you anytime, if you want to contact me, you can come and see what we do and what we do at our school and the things that we do for the preschoolers. Because I don't think that you realize how important it is for early childhood education.
Yes. Well, this is a Coastside Land Trust program that we're just helping to support. They chose fourth grade because they have a really great gardening program, and I think second and third grades. I mean, they wanted to choose a grade that didn't have one of these get out of the classroom. But I'd be happy to talk to you, Candace, about something that maybe would work for your kids. So
that would be great. Yeah. So that would be great because we have I think you can see that we have our garden and our irrigation system and everything at our school too. So we have a lot going on at our little preschool too that not everybody knows about unless your children go there.
Right. Okay. Well, let's talk at some point. I'd be happy to do that once I'm over COVID.
Yes. No need to spread that. Thanks, Candace. Next item is over to Chuck, I think, consideration of phase 2 of the district sewer main replacement capital improvement project, item number 3.
Yeah, this is just an informational item. So we just finished up our 2-year program where we replaced a bunch of the sewer mains, some of the older sewer mains in El Granada, and now we're starting our next phase 2, and we'll be replacing some of the lines from the 1920s and a few of the lines that are just in poor shape. So, we did a CCTV of all the lines in our downtown area. And so we're just going to be going ahead and replacing those. So John Rayner has started, Kennedy Jenks has started the early design process and whatnot. And we've worked with the people from SAM to give our assessment of the lines and whatnot. So just kind of an update for your board to let you know what's happening. Barbara, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that.
Well, I just wanted to say that I want the community to know that we're doing this, that we're being pretty aggressive right now in replacing all of the 1920 lines and the problem lines. So one big project's completed and there's more coming. And of course, people need to realize also that our biggest cost is for SAM. How much this costs us? How much, Chuck, are we spending on this a year?
Usually, probably $425,000, something like that. So
yeah. So, and it's right now, SAM is looking for 1.6 million. But I also think it's important for people to know in our community that we are on top of the fact that some of the lines need to be replaced, and we're doing it as in a very expeditious manner.
Chuck, since this was done a couple years ago, the costs changed? Yes. Is that kind of taken in? And I assume they have. My question really is, are we doing less than we initially planned because the costs have gone up more than we planned?
No, we're doing the same amount, but the costs have gone up, obviously, because,
costs go up.
Costs go up, exactly. There's nothing tricky about that. So yeah, so we're trying to be aggressive and replacing all these lines, to get this stuff going.
Well, at least we got it done quickly. It seems like PG&E has moved into El Granada for permanently.
Yeah.
Can I just make a comment? I just wanted to mention that thankfully, Tony Young is a really great collections worker, and I've coordinated with him to send us their results of their work orders. Each month, they know which lines they're going to be cleaning, and then once they run the lines, they know which ones are problems. And so we're better coordinating with SAM and those results, and we're sending them, we're getting them monthly now. From the collection crew, and it's going directly to our engineer to help us keep on top of knowing which lines have problems. So just want to mention that.
Yeah, and I'd second that. He's done a great job with communication.
Okay. Any further comment?
Nope.
Yes, I have one more comment. I'm not sure everybody realizes that we contract with SAM to do the maintenance of our lines and to deal with any kind of emergencies in our lines. And if the problem is in our lines, we fix it. So we are working hard to get it so. And the new lines get fused so they don't have the joints like the old lines did, correct?
Well, it all depends what construction they use, but yes. So the stuff we're replacing has a joint every 3 feet or 5 feet with the old clay pipe. Now, if they're using PVC and conventional construction, it's 20 feet. But if you do HDPE, it's all fused. And if you just line it, there's no joints. Yeah.
And which are we doing?
Well, it depends what the bid comes in.
All right, but it seems like HPDE is the way to go.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Well done.
For another time, but I know this was spread out over 6 years, and I wasn't on the board then, but I think I attended a couple of meetings where this was discussed. And Chuck, I think I remember you saying it's just a matter of the board making a choice about how much you want to spend and how far you want to spread it. So my question is really not for tonight, but just to park the question on whether, when we finish this phase, should we think about accelerating, given that everything is just going to, particularly with all the supply chain issues around the world, it's just going to keep getting more expensive.
Yeah, it's an interesting question because, you could spend $1 million a year, you could spend $2 million a year, you could spend $500,000 a year. I think our program is pretty aggressive. At the end of the day, we talk about joints and whatnot. Nothing's leaking out of the sewer pipelines. So you're just trying to get a program in place. And John Rayner and I, our engineer, have talked about this, and we kind of settled on this $500,000 a year program, which is probably 25% of our O&M budget. So, that's pretty aggressive for most sewer districts. But, it's a board decision, obviously.
Okay. Thanks. Any other questions or comment? See no hands, so we'll move to item 4, report on the status of district newsletter and website upgrade. I think Barbara and I are drafting newsletter, but do you have an update on the website upgrade and timing?
Yeah, and Delia, we just got an email today from Chris Starbird, right? Did you see that?
No, I haven't seen it.
Oh, okay. So he just sent us an update. So.
Well, I did meet with him on Tuesday. We had about a good 20-minute Zoom meeting where I was able to give him some more details about the new tabs that we're adding and the information that we want to provide, and moving things around a little bit so it makes it the website a little bit easier to navigate. And after we had our meeting, I sent him several documents that we're going to be linking on the website. And I also wrote the introductions that'll be, or the static text that will be on the tabs when you click into them. And those are certainly up for, adjustment. So we'll have something, I think, draft available for everybody to look at. But one of the things that I could use some help with is a lot of I wanted some good local photographs, and I don't have high enough resolution, I guess, on the photographs that I have. So if anybody has any good local high resolution photos that they want to submit that might work for our website, please feel free to send them to me. And
I have lots of photos.
That would be awesome. That would be great, because we were kind of limited. We looked on Google for a few, and most of them are all of the golf ball, Pillar Point Harbor, and the water, but we have very few of the landscape, which I'd like to see more of local landscape. So yeah, if you could send that. And then we should have something within the next month or so. I think we should have.
If you can loop Nancy into those emails.
Okay.
I know I keep sending it her, but
okay.
Yeah.
I actually tried to call you, Nancy, while we were on the Zoom meeting, and you didn't pick up. But yeah, I do want to include you on this. So
I did see that.
Our overall goal is to make it more Parks and Rec focused. We were a sewer district for 50 years, whatever the timeline. Now we're trying to go to Parks and Recs. So
great.
That's kind of our overall goal. Chris Starbird is a guy who works at Dudek, and he does web design. So for some background for you.
Oh, I think I worked with Chris when we created the Parks page.
Yeah. Okay.
Probably. I did commit to the PAC, as we discussed, not having rec staff or a lot of staff support for them, that I would help with their communications. So both what we're going to send out for summer programs as well as for what we park on the web. So definitely tap me for that.
Good. Okay. And
the newsletter, Barbara, and I have work in progress.
Are you and Barbara doing that? So
we have several pages, probably would be a 2-page foldout because it has updates on the park, the community center, where our funding comes from, summer recreation programs, the PAC, who they are and what they do, the pump track, the outdoor education program, the history donation from Barbara Vanderwerf for the Granada history information. We have a place parked for sewer or garbage news. So we should probably include something about the upcoming, in the next year, what we just discussed, capital improvements, and noting it's an election year. You're tuned into the various lawsuits going on around the state to push for districts, but also the grand jury report in 2016, amongst the communication things that it advocated for was ensuring that you communicate about elections and how people are elected and their terms and those sorts of things. So we are putting in a blurb that it's an election year and offering if people are interested in public service, we can connect them with a board member who can explain what we do and how we do it and what the commitment is of their time and attention. So just to start getting that out there. Any comments on that in the newsletter? Hopefully when Barbara recovers, hopefully very quickly, we will get a good robust draft once we can be in the same place. Onto the consent agenda. Do I read them first or ask if anybody wants to have something pulled first?
Did we forget about the SAM report?
No, I guess I did. Thank you. I marked it off and moved on. Okay, report on SAM.
Wishful thinking.
You're happy you're skipping it.
Barbara, are you up to discussing that topic that you were going to, or I can just give reports on what happened at the meetings?
I can talk about it briefly. The board approved a $3 million capital improvement program for this year for SAM, with a lot of big ticket items, replacing the Princeton pump station, replacing a lot of pumps. There's quite a lot of work in that program. It turns out that last year, in the year we're in now, SAM has only spent $20,000, $50,000 on the capital improvement program that we gave them, all three agencies together gave them $2.4 million to do. So I've been pushing for an accounting of those projects and when they're going to be done, because we are paying for a $3 million capital improvement program, we would have to pay 1/12 of that every month. But and 2 years ago, they also had the same thing where they didn't do all the projects and they didn't spend a lot of the money. So they have this extra money that's just sitting there in the bank that has actually been able to fund the fact that they did they spent like 700, I don't even know how much, 700,000 would have been promised in accounting on the plant upset, which they used capital improvement money, infrastructure money, to cover that. So my question is, if we have 2 years of worth of projects that aren't done, why should we pay $1.6 million starting in July. Maybe we pay in some of it in January, or we see how the projects are coming. I mean, the fact that we are paying 1/12 of the infrastructure project and the projects are not getting completed seems wrong to me. And there needs to be an accounting for that. So I am getting some documents and going to follow up on this. The bottom line is we did approve this $3 million, but to me, that's saying that this is the next tranche of projects that Sam needs to do. And I know there's a perception about that out there that things have not been done for Sam, you know, that there's a deferred maintenance and all these things. Well, we've been paying the money to do this stuff, and it seems like some of this stuff should be getting done. So that's, we'll keep you posted on this. I'm being told I'm going to get an accounting for the uncompleted projects, and projects change. They may discover that one of them they didn't, you know, some of the projects they didn't need to do, or they were able to combine two projects and it cost them less. I don't know. But it seems like we should be paying attention to that money, not just letting it sit there in SAM with no accounting for it, which is what's been going on. So that's what I'm pushing for right now. So I voted for this $3 million, but I'm not sure when the whole budget comes that I'm going to be ready to pay, to vote to start paying 1/12 of that in July when the new fiscal year starts. Matthew, does that make sense?
Yes, well, indeed. And related to that is that I have noticed that there are items that recur on the SAM budget every year, and we don't know whether the money was spent or the money was spent on what it was allocated for, or whenever anything is done. And I have zoned in on 5 years of an item that says they're going to do a maintenance plan for every piece of equipment that SAM owns. And that I've gotten that now put on a future agenda item, but that could be another 4 months, 6 months, who knows when it will rise to the top. But it's a typical thing. That's a relatively small financial item, but we had a near disaster a few years ago when the electric bar duct, bus duct, right? I've never understood why that is called that.
It's the main electrical feed into the plant. Yeah.
Right. It's the main electrical feed into the plant, and it went bad because no one knew it was supposed to be have maintenance done to it, and I believe that was more of the impetus to get this maintenance plan for every piece of equipment developed, but we haven't ever seen it. And so I'm glad that Barbara's on this too, that it's not just that relatively small but important item. There are numerous other things that the member agency is okay at the SAM board, and we basically don't know if they ever get done. So,
and I pushed hard for that at our managers meeting. We'll see what happens, obviously, but I want to put to rest the myth that there's deferred maintenance. No SAM budget has ever been not passed. We've given them everything they've asked for, and they're not spending the money, and they should be, because that's why we approved that. So I keep hearing this myth about the deferred maintenance, and it just annoys me because we're giving them $2.5 million a year. Not, but yeah, we're giving them 20% of $2.5 million a year.
Are you confident, Matthew and Barbara, that say the 2.4 million we're giving them for this fiscal year is being reserved so that it is only paying for the things that they that they asked for?
No.
So that list that you're not, because you don't get an accounting that says you gave us 2.4 million 400 was supposed to go to this project. We allocated it. We spent 360 or 440, but because I understand things can change and it won't be exact, but I would expect that when we approve a budget for a list of projects, we get data on the allocation of money to those projects. And if any was left over, which probably likely wouldn't happen, that it comes back. Well, I think we ought to have an accounting that they're actually spending the money on the things that we agreed to pay the money for.
Right, and they have over $1 million in, I call it mystery money, that's over and above their required reserves, that is left over from undone projects. Am I sharing my screen right now?
Yes, yes.
So this, just so people know, this is the approved budgets for SAM. The really tall one is the Princeton Force Main, right, Chuck? 2017, 18.
Yeah, it's
But you can see that the capital improvement expenditures, and I got these numbers from Kishen. So the last two are suspect because those are the approved numbers, not what they actually spent. But you can see, as an agency, we have been supportive of increasing the amount of money that we are giving SAM to fund infrastructure. And I think that's an important thing for us to do. I'm just asking for better accountability.
And that's what I asked for as well. And, to your point, Barbara, we approved, I just lost you. Okay.
I just stopped sharing the screen.
I just stopped sharing.
We approved $2.5 million in capital expenditures last year. And to date, they've spent $13,000. So they're not doing the projects. That's the problem.
And the other aspect of this is that the 3 million that the board just voted on the last meeting and approved, and we had a list of projects, and most of them were main justification was this stuff's old, it's rusty, it's out of its use life, we can't get new parts, and we have to replace everything. So.
Right.
And let me just say, I think past its useful life is a totally meaningless phrase. They like to use it because it makes them feel good. And there are lists of how long a pump can last and how long these other things. But if you go and look at the source of those numbers, they aren't real numbers. A pump will last depending on how good a pump it was to start, how well it's been maintained, extra problems with it. You can't just say, oh, at 20 years.
Right. In the intervening years, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and if they say we can't get parts for it anymore, okay, that makes sense to me. If they say it's not working very well, things like that, fine. But they seem to just, on all of them, well, it's past its useful life. Come on, give me more than that if you want $1 million.
Yeah.
Eric, what do you think about that?
I like to say, if I ask my wife, I'm past the end of my useful life. So.
I'd be curious what Eric thinks about this.
I mean, I think that's true, but.
Talking about end of useful life, Eric?
I mean, do we all feel that way sometimes anymore? Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Barbara. I mean, my experience is planned obsolescence is the much bigger issue for these sorts of things.
Yeah, and I was telling Matthew and Barbara with this kind of stuff, if you've got three, I'm going to pick one of the line items, 3 effluent pumps, okay? What you do is you have 3 pumps that are working and you got one on the shelf. And then when one breaks down, whatever you want, we don't repair them anymore because it's actually cheaper to just replace them. You take that one, you knock it out, you replace it and you buy another one on the shelf. That's the end of its useful life. That's how.
When it stops working, that's the end of the useful life.
Right. That's how most treatment plants operate. So, or how they should operate.
Yeah. And then you plan for when.
Right.
I mean, there will be a day where you can't get parts for things and you plan for that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And we're replacing them with newer pumps.
like model. I mean, and that was in their pump proposal. It was basically the new version of the model they have.
Yeah, we're not
Except
doing
some of them, they're getting exactly the same model for some of them.
Yeah, I mean, some things never got a
It's a
style.
good pump.
I'm also starting to really wonder about apparent obsolescence, because when you tour the plant, you see there a lot of things are very rusted and look like you're going to fail while you stand there. And it is a tough environment. It's right next to the oceans, salt air, and they generate their own chemical and aerosol contaminants, of course. But I think the next time I walk around there with someone at SAM, I'm just going to ask, there's very good paint you can buy these days. How come it's not applied? Why is all this stuff rusty? It's I just don't get it. But we're delving into it. It's a hard nut to crack.
Yeah, definitely stay on that. If we keep allocating money and they're not doing the projects, then we're not getting the updates to the plant that they have said we have to have.
Yeah.
Well, that's the most maddening issue, is we're funding it and they're not
Getting it done.
And we have this myth of deferred maintenance, or it's like we're not funding the stuff. We are. All three agencies are. So
Yes, well, they're replacing the Princeton pump station in this one, which is a big need. The Portola Force Main, the big line from El Granada to Half Moon Bay, was finally replaced. That's the one that Half Moon Bay didn't want to share in. That was a big expense. That's done. They're talking about, they've put in new pumps in Portola pump station. So yes, there are still pumps that are not up to, they would like to replace. But it's not like yes, the electrical building has a problem, and they're supposed to be looking at that as well. So, yeah. Anyway, we'll keep you posted. And we may have to ask our community for more funding to fund these measures at SAM, because we do have to keep the SAM plant running properly.
Somebody quoted, I don't know who it was they were quoting at the SAM meeting, when they said when it was built, it was about 7/8 paid for through state and federal grants, and nobody thought about it needing to be replaced 40 years down the line. So now we're basically funding the replacement one piece of equipment at a time, but there wasn't an accrual from day one to plan for a more dynamic, consistent replacement.
That was Catherine that said that, and Greg Diguez is writing on that as we speak. It has been done for the last year. He's all about, basically, when he came to MWSD, he said, I don't think that you've actually are replacing your equipment in the timeline, like you said, a 40-year timeline. But part of that also is the federal funding. Everybody was federally funded in the 70s, and now there's no federal funding. And all of the business models for water and sewer systems across the nation, they're not even, and they're not fair, not equitable, and they're not safe anymore. So hopefully we'll get some more federal funding.
Yeah. Well, Chuck, are there any major systems that you think need to be replaced?
It's another myth, federal funding or whatnot. The treatment plant's a bunch of concrete tanks with pumps and motors. And as long as you replace the pumps and the motors and the pipelines within the treatment plant, you'll be fine. So there seems to be this, push for, SAM needs a whole new treatment. They'll be the first one. So.
Okay, anything else on SAM?
Well, we did have two meetings. I will quickly mention a few things. At the February 28th meeting, we had a report on the first flush, which I hope people will remember former Director Warren used to participate in this, and it's an effort by RCD and the county, and SAM contributes to support it, and other agencies to test just how the runoff from the first big rain of the year is. And so they went out in, it must have been December, when there was a first day with 7/10 of an inch of rain, and tested places up and down the coast. And it was like almost every year, except worse. Every outflow, every beach that they tested locally for us exceeded limits on things like E. coli and Enterococcus. And well, in one there was 12 out of 13, and the other was all 13, including several inside the harbor. So, and that remains pretty much a mystery of where that stuff comes from. But all these efforts that are being made to make sure every district's sewers aren't leaking are going forward, and they're working. But the flow into the ocean when it first rains has not materially improved. Second, we got an...
Wait, can I just speak to that? Which is, I want to make it real clear that it's not leaking sewer lines that causing the problem. Our sewer lines don't really leak.
Right.
The problem
Yeah, RCD did a report on that about 10 years ago, where they found out it was the farm.
Cows and dogs.
Yes, cows and dogs. Oh,
yeah. On Nextdoor, someone posted a picture of about 10,000 seagulls on the sand inside the harbor over there, and asked the question, do you think they have anything to do with this? So, yeah. Anyway, then we had an update on the fats, oils, and grease program that as part of the non-domestic waste source control program that SAM is revamping, reinitiating, I should say. And they have done, they had done 24 locations, 23 of which were in our district, I believe. And I got them to send the full report to us, which they hadn't until then. And so we know who they're talking about, and there's one, they didn't name it. I looked at that report, and there's no identification, but there was one firm that was tested 3 times and is still out of compliance. So we should think about finding out who that is and urging them at our more local level to get their act together. Oh, I don't want to go any more on that meeting. We had another meeting on last Monday, and well, Barbara already mentioned the big item, which was Sam's general manager had proposed well over $3 million capital improvements program for the next year. And then he said that and the manager, he admitted at the meetings with the member agency managers, they had urged that Sam stick closer to about $2.5 million. And the board asked a lot of questions the last couple of meetings, and the SAM management came back with more reasons warranting about $500,000 more of work. And that was all passed at SAM at the last meeting. So it came to just under 3.1 million. And but as Barbara and I have both been talking about, we're trying to get the board more interested in looking at what's happened in the recent few years and where all this money's going or isn't going.
And for some perspective there, this is what we try and set our rates with. Sam doesn't have rates, obviously, the 3-member agencies do. So we had agreed on 2.5 million. Like Matthew said, this year is 3.1. I think the next year is 3.4. This is Sam's plan, not ours. 3.7, 3.9. We need to set a number because we have to figure out what our rates are going to be. So.
Yeah, that's the big thing for the boards at their member agency level. So
right, because Sam doesn't have ratepayers, so
right, they just have requests. Yeah. Okay, that's enough on Sam.
Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. If I read off what's on it.
You don't have to actually, but if you want, you can.
4 items: minutes, warrants, financial statements, assessment district distribution. Is there anything anybody would like to pull for discussion? No. You have a motion?
Yeah, I was waiting for that to finish. I was going to ask where is that? The labor negotiator recommended the board approves a one-time cash out for the general manager and finance officer due to circumstances presented by COVID-19. What were those details?
On Sam?
Yeah.
All right, I can do this. This is yet another retention thing. Not only did we give them a bonus because they worked so hard during the pandemic, they did not take their vacation time, which, there's a reason people are supposed to take vacation, and they mostly didn't. So they're going to be allowed, and it maxes at a certain number of days or hours, I guess, per year. So once you've not taken vacation to a certain point, you can't still not, it doesn't keep adding up. So if you leave or retire, they have to pay you for those vacation days that you didn't take. So in this case, they want to, because people were at the plant, and it's true during the upset, they were at the plant a lot. A lot of them didn't take their vacation, and so they want a big payout of their vacation pay for this year, and then they'll start accruing new vacation pay that they, if they don't take their vacation, will eventually have to pay.
California vacation accrual is an earned benefit, and you really want people to take it, but if they don't take it, it generally makes financial sense to pay it out, because otherwise they'll keep accruing, and when they do take it, they're getting paid more than they were getting paid when they earned the vacation. So financially, you want them to get close to when they earn it.
There is a cap, Nancy. There's a cap.
I understand.
Yeah.
It still makes sense to pay it out rather than let them carry it.
What's the cap, Barbara?
I don't remember. 120 hours or something?
I think it was 80 this time, wasn't it?
80 maybe, yeah.
It's generally a cap on what they can carry over.
And actually, they came to an agreement with their labor union on this and did the same thing for their workers. And so this is just giving the 2 unrepresented employees the same deal that the workers got.
It's kind of interesting. Dudek just went to unlimited vacation. So they don't have to pay us any accrued vacation. And they tried to sell it as a benefit, but.
I mean, I'm just confused though, because what's the purpose of
a gift of funds, David, if that's what you're asking?
No, I'm I understand what Nancy's saying if there's no cap in place, but since we have a cap in place, why would we agree? Why would everyone vote to do this? So the fact that it's capped, I just I'm not understanding, especially. I understand some employees also, but some employees probably work from home more. I'm just not seeing the total connection between how much more rigorous it was because of COVID.
And we gave them a bonus, like a $5,000 bonus, everybody. So.
Is it the carryover that's capped, or how much vacation they can totally accrue?
It's a carry.
I think
It's usually the carryover.
like
Yeah.
UNED used to do. If you had over 200 hours at the end of the year, they would pay you. So if I had 250 hours, they'd pay me 50 hours. So they would limit their deferred liability.
That's exactly right. So it's not a cap
But
on
now I
the
get
number of
unlimited.
vacation days you get. It's how many you can continue to carry over into the next fiscal year.
Right. You're trying to limit your deferred liability. Yeah.
Exactly.
Barbara, correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't the cap 400 hours at SAM?
I don't remember.
That's a lot.
Delia, do you know? It was high.
I know it's high, but I can't say exactly. I think Matthew is fairly close. It's either 400 or 500 hours or something like that from what I recall.
I think 80 hours is probably more typical for a carryover.
Yeah, theirs is very high. They have a lot, really good.
To be fair, they have a really hard time. They want people to work there who live on the coast side because they need to have people available. And it's hard to get people who want to live in the coast side. They were advertising for a job recently, and they found a great candidate who had all the qualifications. It seemed like a great person, but the package that Sam was offering did not include free preschool, which he was in, he was in Daly City, and as an employee of the city, his kids got free preschool, and that made it not worth it for him. So it is a problem getting people to come work here and live here.
Yeah, they just need to, though, to, as managers, make sure people take their vacation.
Yeah.
They were worried that they wanted to keep everybody on during COVID because they some people might get sick, and that they'd have to those jobs would have to be covered by somebody else. That didn't really eventuate, but they didn't want to have, when the COVID crisis is declared over, everybody could take vacation at the same time because they had many hours that otherwise they'd lose.
Yeah, got it.
That answer your question, David?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, that's how I feel. Boy, it must be nice to have accrued vacation. I could have used that. Okay.
Yeah, and there are other states where if you don't use it, you lose it. In fact, many other states where if you don't use it, you lose it at the end of the year.
Right.
California is not one of them. And then when you have that, people take their vacations. Okay, going to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion?
I'll call the roll.
Okay.
Director Clark. Director Marsh.
Aye.
Director Seaton.
Aye.
Director Sugamil.
Aye.
And Director Dye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 5-0.
Okay, moving on to item 10, committee reports. Any reports?
This isn't, I thought we had a place for directors' reports too, but I don't see it, so I'll bring this up now. I got some information from CSDA, and then I looked it up at the Legislative Analyst's Office, and there's a potential California initiative being circulated now for signatures. I got interested because I saw a fellow at the grocery store, and he had 4 different petitions, and I read the legislative analyst's analysis of each of them, and I came across this one. It's called the Taxpayer Protection and Government Accountability Act. And you may run into somebody who asks you to sign this, put it on the ballot. And CSDA has come out strongly against this and wants all member agencies to pass resolutions against this. And it's a nice name, but their analysis and LAO pretty much goes along with all of this, is that it could prevent virtually any new fees or assessments to fund water, sewer, trash, fire protection, parks and recreation, and other essential services and infrastructure. It would substantially increase the legal and administrative costs of public infrastructure financing. And then this is the one that really got me. It limits revenues to the minimum amount necessary to do what's minimally needed. So, and it gives the members of the public the ability to challenge specific projects by government agencies to say, you're not doing the minimum amount necessary. You want to buy new pumps, for instance, you could replace you could repair the old ones and stop that kind of work dead in its tracks, which would be not good. And another point they make is that this will restricting local services and infrastructure to the lowest minimum possible amount will disproportionately impact the most underserved communities the hardest across the state. So I think I'd like to have our board consider this, passing a resolution. I'm pretty sure CSDA has a model that we could adopt to say, we think this is a bad idea.
So we should add that to a future agenda for next month?
Yes. I don't know how long the
comment period
signature gathering process goes, but this is aimed at next November, I believe. If they want to put it on the ballot.
Okay. Michelle has asked if you have a link to the information.
I'll drop one in a second. I just found it.
Okay. Michelle also brought to my attention under the title of Director's Report that there is a bill circulating in the state that would reduce ERAF, since we were talking about that last week or last month with the park financials, and it had a table for how much each agency would have in the county would have theirs reduced by. The fact that the numbers that each agency gets, it's nice to see a list of all of the agencies, but the number that each gets seems to make no particular logic or sense, but ours, I think, was on the list to reduce by about $80,000.
Yeah, the amount of property tax we get is actually set in stone by our percentage back in 1976, whatever percentage of the 1% we got then.
Yeah. And we noted that ERAF is a nice to have, and but not as secure as the property tax.
Right. No, the ERAF takes money away from us, and we're one of the counties that get it back. So we don't get it back here in San Diego, for instance. So it's actually, it's a good thing.
Okay, moving on, if there are no other committee reports, to the information calendar, any attorney's report?
No, we got nothing.
No, nothing to report.
Thanks, Antoinette. Thanks for sticking with us. General manager's report?
I've got nothing further.
Administrative staff report?
I just want to remind everybody that your Form 700 of economic interest needs to be filed. You can do that online by April 1st. And if you could all send me a copy. And if you need the link, I can send it to you.
I'd appreciate that. If you would. Thanks. Engineers report?
Don't have any questions on John's report?
Did not.
Nope. Okay.
And lastly, future agenda items.
Excuse me. On John's report, he brought up Big Wave and how they would like to build their how they would like to pay for additional sewer service, and they want to. They're only asking for one permit for a building that's going to have plumbing for 11 separate units or offices, and they want to pay for it, apply and pay for it, apparently one unit at a time as after they're each individually leased.
Correct.
And John notes that a piecemeal approach would require GCSD staff to monitor the progress of leasing units and then charge a prorated connection fee as additional sewer capacity is needed. Our recommendation is to charge the connection fee just once for the entire building. So do we have a policy on this?
Well, the short answer is, Matthew, is no. They don't get to pay that way. So yes, we do have a policy. If they build you know, whatever, 10,000 square foot office space, we charge them for 10,000 square feet. We do not let them do it as they lease it out or not. So
They're they come in and ask for one permit for this building because they have one place leased. We say,
This is actually common in the sewer world. See what John said. But no, if you permit the building, we permit the building. Whether you've got it leased out or you don't, it's no different than if, you know, you have a house and you leave for 6 months to, you know, go live abroad or something. You still pay. Yeah.
Right. And by this logic, if someone defaulted on their lease or just closed their business down, they could come back and say, oh, we're not using sewer in that one.
Right. Yes.
It's based on capacity potential, not on actual use. So
that's why I say the short answer is no, they can't do that.
Good.
And we're not going to let them.
Good. Thank you.
Okay. Lastly, future agenda items. We just noted a follow-up resolution on the CSDA issue. Anything else? Nope. In that case, at 9:07, we are adjourned.
I'd just like to say thank you very much, Nancy, for doing a great job of running the meeting, and I appreciate it because
it's like the old pack. Thank you, Barbara.
I'm not my usual bouncy self.
Still made a great contribution.
Guys,
Yeah, well,
I'm not
better.
the Irish pub.
yeah. Matthew, are you available tomorrow for signatures?
yes.
Okay, I'll give you a call. Thanks.
Okay.
All right.
Hi, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Night.
I'm going to end it.